Black spot? This is no good. Black spot? A sickness that affects roses. These little specks appear where they don't get enough sun. When that happens, they must be cut off. They cannot remain in the garden. Why not? If they remain, the black spot can spread through wind or rain. The outbreak will worsen. Would you not be sad if all these roses withered and died? That would be horrible. Then, you must cut them off before that happens. Hello and welcome back to the Kutsukai channel. I hope you are enjoying your day so far. This is an exciting video for the channel because this will be my first ever manga review. So today we'll be reviewing Goodbye My Rose Garden. This is a 3-part manga series. It is complete in 3 volumes and the story and art is by Dr. Pepperco. I did do some research on Dr. Pepperco and I saw they had a couple other things as well. Looks like it's in the GL genre also, but this is my first work by them. This is a GL series, which I do not read a lot if you are familiar with the Kutsukai channel at all. I think this series is a really good introduction, at least for me, and I think for anyone who's looking to get into GL, I think this series would be a good place to start. Pretty standard story. There are things that this manga does well and other things that I wish it did better. Oh, since this is the first, get into a couple of things with my manga reviews, or hopefully soon to be book reviews on the channel. Think of this, okay, let me set the scene. Think of this as a chaotic book club. Everyone's sitting in a campfire circle. I am just the participant that talks way too much, takes over the conversation, and you're probably like, is she gonna let anybody else talk? And no, because this is kind of a one-way street. Second, I'm not a genius. I've never claimed to be a genius. I am just someone who likes to read and someone who overthinks, but instead of letting my overthinking overtake me, I like to use my overthinking powers for good. So I apply it to most things I read. With all that in mind, my reviews, typically for this channel, will contain spoilers, but I will have something at the end where I have just a general overview of my thoughts of the manga. If you don't want any spoilers, go ahead and skip to that part. Let's go ahead and get into our review. So before we hop in too far in here, I have this little figure that I got from some touristy shop when I went to London, which I will have vlogs for that coming up probably after this video. This is gonna be what we have in the background. We're gonna have Big Ben. The story's set in London, Big Ben. I'm gonna split this up into 3 parts. We're gonna talk about volume 1, volume 2, volume 3.
Wow, your mind's blown. Look how creative that was.
General overview of this story. It follows these 2 main characters you see on the front here. We have Alice, or Lady Alice, because she's like an aristocrat, and Hanako here. And this is essentially pretty typical, right? It's just 2 people who fall in love during a time where love is not necessarily free. You kind of go through the story, they're navigating their feelings for each other, as well as this overall pressure of like it not being accepted in society in that time. Volume 1, for any typical kind of like 3-part manga series, is essentially setting up the scene, setting up the setting, setting up the character, setting up the setup. So where are we? We are in London in the turn of the century, the year 1900. And I think, yeah, this entire story takes place in London. Hanako recently moved to London from Japan. And then we of course have our other main character, Lady Alice, who is this aristocrat, Chebel. What I really like about the start of this, we meet both Hanako and Alice together, which I like that. That's new. But because typically with romances, you meet the 2 love interests separately, right? You see kind of their internal dialogue and it's like,
you know what I'm missing in my life? Someone who loves shoes.
And then the other main character, you see their POV.
You know what I'm missing in life? Just someone who has a lot of shoes.
And then it's like, oh, ding, ding, ding. Those people are a perfect match. Hanako just moved to London from Japan and is working as a maid and has this dream of meeting Victor Franks as well as becoming an author herself. Alice is showing Hanako around the entire state. Conversation is pretty innocuous to start, which is typical. You don't want to throw so much at the reader in like the first 10 pages. The part where, in hindsight, I didn't think this at the time, the part where they enter Alice's library and their conversation there really sets the tone for the core of their relationship with each other. Hanako is like completely enamored with this room. She's like, oh my god, there's so many books everywhere. This is super exciting, which is me anytime I step into a library or any kind of bookstore. Alice is like, you must really love books. And Hanako, which I'll read this here, but I don't think love is a strong enough word. With books, I can endure just about anything. I need them to survive. Books are kind of the whole reason she's there in the first place. Books are a means of a guide to life, to show that life can be more than just what's put in front of you. And then Alice responds. She's essentially saying, and then Alice kind of responds to say they're proof that she existed. How do I explain this? Her response to that is just like, oh, the whole proof that I existed is kind of finite. Where, you know, Hanako's relationship with books and novels is kind of not infinite. I don't want to say it's that extreme, but more open-ended. With her situation, how could you even think outside the box, right? You do what you're told, you uphold the family name, there's really no deviation. So her only deviation is through books and stories, but they can only exist there. And it's interesting because as we progress further and further, right, Hanako brings Alice outside of that restrictive mindset. And another thing too that kind of adds to that idea as well, something that's brought up a lot is just hands in general. So Hanako, you know, mentions often that it was Alice's hand that was the thing, the kind of like the spider's web to kind of bring her in. Very telling, as something you learn at I think pretty early in the story. I don't even think you're getting to the end here before you learn that Alice is Victor Franks. Yeah, that idea of like it was her hand that really kind of brought her in like a spider's web, because it was her hand that wrote the novels as well, which caused her to think about life in a more abstract sense. Hopefully that all made sense. The rest of volume 1, we learn, of course, we don't really learn much about the backstories of Alice and Hanako. We do know that there are kind of lingering rumors about Alice's sexuality. And then one part that kind of pissed me off, one of the damn maids was like looking at Hanako. It's like, she looks just like Alice's type. I'm like, do you know how dangerous that joke or whatever you just said was? Like, girl, be quiet. Anyways, but yeah, so we learn about these lingering rumors. We also meet other characters as well, like Edward. And Edward is some other wealthy aristocrat who I think has feelings for Alice. I think they're set up to be married or something like that. So we meet him as well as other family members. I think Alice's mom and her sister, as well as a publisher, because they do go to this other publishing house in London. Found a review on my anime list that I kind of want to use throughout this video. One, because I have a bad habit of looking reviews. It's like when I watch a YouTube video, I like to go to the comments because I have bad habits. Anyways, this review kind of encapsulates kind of my feelings on this series. Essentially, they say, while this is a great story, right, there are kind of some incoherent-ish pieces of it, can be repetitive, as well as they mention kind of the art as well, that a lot of the characters look the same, which is fair. Alice is definitely the base for these English women, right? Because I swear her sister looks like Alice, but with the mole. The mom looks like old Alice. Nonetheless here, focusing on that coherent-ish part is one thing I'll mention about volume 1 too. So there is a pact that Alice and Hanako make, right? So Alice says, hey, I know who Victor Franks is, which duh, it's her. But you have to promise me that after I tell you, you'll kill me. Gives Hanako some time to think about it, and Hanako says, yes, I agree. Unless I'm wrong, unless I forgot, I don't remember that pact ever coming up again. I don't. That's one thing. It's a big thing to kind of mention, right? You think it's going to be mentioned again, which kind of frustrated me a little bit. Nonetheless, we learn in volume 1 who Alice and Hanako are, Alice's situation, Hanako's situation, the pact, who Victor Franks is, as well as other supporting characters. And we end with Alice and Hanako frolicking about in the streets of London. And then we move on to volume 2. First of all, volume 2, probably my favorite cover. This is a volume where we really dig into the black pages, if you will, because every flashback page in manga has like a black background, right? Really the black pages of both Alice and Hanako. Really kind of more Alice in this sense, which is kind of one issue I had with this story, is that sometimes I feel like the depth that Hanako had was that she's Japanese and that's it. I feel like there could have been more, but really what I like about volume 2 is really learning more about Alice, and you kind of learned about where the rumors came from. In addition, you learned that their pasts are kind of connected through one person, Miss Eliza, right? So back in the day, Alice was taught by Miss Eliza, right, in her younger days, and it was very obvious that Alice was beginning to develop a crush on Miss Eliza. So Alice's mom thought it would be in her best interest to send Eliza away, and that completely destroyed Alice. And they also didn't tell her where she went, what happened to her. So Alice was like, did she die? What happened to her? Is it my fault that she got sent away? So that kind of introduced some other traumas as well with her, which kind of going back to volume 1 and just her throughout the story, why she has such this hard exterior. That can be very traumatic for a person to think that because of your feelings, which are already deemed wrong, like you're already taught that they're wrong, right? So any part of you that wants to break through that is fucking crushed when you think, okay, this person who I liked was very important to me in my development as a person, got sent away, lost their job because I like them. How would anyone react to that? That's foul. So the connection, right, with Hanako, Eliza was I guess sent away to Japan, and that's where she began to teach Hanako. I think she taught at a school, and that's how she met Hanako. That's how she was able to give her all of the Victor Franks novels, so on and so forth. At one point, Hanako falls sick, and Alice is taking care of her, and she sees that she has this book, a Victor Franks book. So she opens the book, and she sees that she has a note from Miss Elsa. For some reason, Alice internalizes this as Eliza sent Hanako to London for her to get back at Alice. Girl, come on now. You know that doesn't make sense. Like, come on, be for real. But while Alice is away on some kind of business here, Alice's mom decides to send Hanako away, like she did with Miss Eliza. And I kind of feel for her mom, because I know it's not from a place of, like, she hates that her daughter is this way, right? It's just, I don't know if she thought, okay, if I send these people away, this will make everything better for Alice or better for the family kind of thing. And guess where she sends her? Lord Edward's Quarter, okay? Somewhere in like the outskirts of London. I'm not too familiar with the map of England, so I don't know. As well as we're introduced to other characters as well, like Edward's maid, Suzanne, as well as a small bookshop owner. Her name is Marie. But of course, we have Alice. As soon as she finds out, she's like, no, I'm gonna go get Hanako. She's like, I'm gonna go retrieve Hanako. They're not gonna take her away from me. I have gotten so much taken away from me already. This is not happening again, right? And we have this beautiful scene, I think it's at the end, where they're like both on like the beach and they're like speaking to one another and everything. So essentially that takes us into volume 3. Okay. Background change, outfit change. I feel like I look the same. So Big Ben's gonna sit right there and we are going to continue because we are on volume 3 and we'll be wrapping up. I was really curious to see how the story was going to wrap up. Not that we had a lot that we still needed to wrap up. Essentially where we are is, how's this gonna work, girl? Okay, we know you two want to be together, but how? Okay, so I believe either beginning of or end of volume 2, beginning of volume 3, we have like a cute embrace scene between Alice and Hanako. They're meeting secretly in this area with the help of Suzanne, and Edward gets to see it.
I'm glad he does, okay?
And Alice and Hanako make their way back to the Lady Alice estate, and we have some things going down. Edward is pretty much making his intention clear that he does want to marry Alice, and she has to make this decision whether she wants to really take control of her life and really kind of touch on, in a, you know, figurative way, like I talked about in volume 1, really start to live outside of her novels, if that makes sense. So, and Hanako in this sense too is thinking about that because she does realize her feelings for Alice, what she first thought was admiration, but as we're going through the story, she realizes, oh, I really care for her in a deeper, actually romantic level. So navigating what sacrifices she is willing to make in this sense. But yeah, that's pretty much the big thing, the big overarching thing that we're looking at in volume 3. And there are a couple of things I want to discuss. So Edward throughout the story has kind of like puffed his chest out at Hanako. There's one time where he like pressured her, like, what is your relationship with Lady Alice? And he does it again, okay? And I just want to see if someone can help me out with what he means by what he's saying. So he gives Hanako an ultimatum. Like, it's kind of like, it's not an ultimatum, it's like, he really just gives her one choice. Like, essentially, you gotta get the hell out of here. I don't know, you ain't gotta go home, but you gotta get the hell out of here. And like, Hanako brings up something because at this point he has seen that Alice and Hanako kiss, so he fucking knows what's going on, right? And Hanako asks a question that I'm just, at this point, I'm like, yeah, can you answer this, please? She's like, okay, bet. Say you did see what you saw. If you know what you know, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? Why ask her to marry you, even though she don't like you like that in many different ways? Like, but for why? So he goes, do not misunderstand me. I shall not force her. If Alice wishes to cancel our engagement, I will abide by her wishes. And if she fears for her reputation because she cancels our engagement, I shall stand by her as her faithful friend. However, only one condition. Regardless of whether we marry, you are to leave. If you refuse, I will expose the truth. The whole world shall know about her. Okay, how does that benefit anybody? If you say I'm gonna expose the truth. But I thought you wanted to stand by her and be her friend. Being her friend would be keeping her secret. It gets worse. Don't worry. He continues and goes, can you not see that what truly worries her is protecting her family's honor? Alice's happiness lies not in shaming herself, but in being my wife, the wife of an earl. What the fuck is an earl? Mother to a respectable lineage. If she does not love me, when she has children, she will realize true happiness. I can't believe he fixed his mouth to say this. Then he continues, someday she shall realize that falling in love with a woman was a delusion. Fixing your whole mouth to say once she has children she will realize true happiness, that is crazy. That is crazy to say. I mean, you deserve your whole ass whooped. both cheeks. And then, hold on, I just had another thought. On top of that, she can have a kid with Hanako if she wanted to. Okay? I feel like true happiness is without you, Edward. Anyways, right? So that ultimatum is trash. Because not an ultimatum, it's a lose-lose-lose situation for everybody involved, right? And he tries to gaslight Hanako thinking, do you understand honor? Do you not understand that she has like things to live up to? Essentially, it is presented that way, and Hanako kind of realizes she has, in a way, no choice. It's kind of up to Alice at this point. Alice unfortunately makes the decision, hey, I'm just gonna marry Edward, you know, but I really don't want you to leave. But Hanako's like, it's really best for all of us, kind of. If everybody can't win, nobody can, essentially. So it's this whole thing where Hanako's gonna leave. Everything after that scene with Hanako and Edward, everything's kind of like, it was kind of like a speed run to the end. Honestly, that's how most romances go. Skip to the timestamp if you don't want to hear the ending. So essentially the whole wedding preparations are going on, and as Alice is getting her veil put on, Hanako's like sadly putting things in a suitcase. And then at the altar, instead of saying I do, Alice says I do not. Literally, I do not. And she goes and finds Hanako. They say their I love yous. And I love how they do that in the rose garden. And they end with, of course, saying, say it with me, class, goodbye, my rose garden. And that, my friends, is how we end. Now we're into conclusions, final thoughts of the story. Would I recommend this manga? Abso-fucking-lutely. I think it's a really good short GL series and a good introduction into GL. I'm probably gonna title this video somewhere around the lines of a kind of a frustrating, beautiful story. You know, it is a beautiful story, and I did see some reviews saying that the writing was bland, which I don't necessarily think so. Was it repetitive? Yes, absolutely. A lot of the internal dialogue of the characters was, meaning Alice and Hanako, because those are really the only two perspectives you got, was quite repetitive. But I really think the beauty of what this mangaka did with the writing is really kind of the in-between the line stuff, not necessarily right there in front of you print on page. Like, for example, the part about the black spots or the disease on the roses that I read in the beginning, it can be interpreted in a lot of different ways. It can be interpreted negatively or, you know, positively, in the sense like, yeah, I want to get rid of things that don't serve me so I'm able to flourish. It's also pretty realistic as well, especially with Hanako's development. It's not like she meets Alice, it's like, oh my gosh, love at first sight. It's really she's going through the motions of falling in love with someone. I don't know if I'll do ratings for these. I'll kind of just do a scale, on a scale from Deku, which is the lowest, to the fight scene with Captain Levi and the Beast Titan. Is kind of like right here. Hopefully that makes sense. I think it's definitely a must read if you are a manga collector and you want to diversify your collection. I think this is really good to add. I think it's a nice, good, consumable story that has really beautiful elements, but could, you know, a couple things could be better, but there's no such thing as perfection, so I think it's good at what it's supposed to do. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this manga review. I had a lot of fun for my first ever manga review, and I never thought it would be a GL. Let me know what manga you want me to review next, if you want it to be a shonen, a shoujo. Hope you all enjoy the rest of your day. Keep reading manga, or pick up Goodbye My Rose Garden, because I would recommend it. And I will see you all in a new video very, very soon. Bye.